Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask the AD. Brian Smolder with Director of Athletics Gene Taylor. A lot to get to today. We had a lot of feedback from our poll question that we put out asking for questions for today, which is good. I'd rather have people that are passionate than apathetic.
100%. Give me that any day.
Absolutely.
Give me that any day.
Well, we'll start first with some big news about the staff overall. New soccer coach has been hired in Colleen Colburn.
Yeah, we're excited about Colleen. We were fortunate to have really good candidates that were interested in the position. I think that's a compliment to K-State and our programs, just in general. Certainly our facilities. It's one of the first things most every one of the candidates mentioned was what great commitment we have to our facilities. And then at the end of the day, she just kind of rose to the top. She'd been a head coach at Wyoming, had a lot of great playing experience. I think she was an All-American at Oregon State. Ultimately, was the associate head coach at St. Louis. They made a decent run into the in-state tournament this year. Finally got beat in penalty kicks by number one seeded USC. So a lot of really good experience. She brings a lot of energy and passion. I think she's going to be a lot of fun, and I think she's going to push our kids to be better. And I think she's finished closing out her staff too.
That's right, yeah. Julie McClure, the associate head coach, was just named the other day. J.C. Ackerman will stay on from last year's staff, a former NWSL player, and Team USA participant. So good to see you for the soccer program, and I'm sure people will be building excitement. I think they even said they got their first commitment today as we take this. So
awesome.
As they get ready for the new future of K-State soccer. We'll get to soccer more in the facility question later, but let's talk about the Big 12 meetings. You just got back from meeting with all the other Big 12 ADs. What updates can you give us?
Yeah, it's a typical year in after football review. We spent a lot of time talking about, the college football playoff, not so much who got picked and who didn't, is like how do we position ourselves as a conference to try to get more teams in. We talked about our scheduling model. Right now we play 10 Power 4 conference games, 9 in the conference and 1 outside the conference. Is that the right model? We didn't make any major decisions because our scheduling is kind of set, but we just really looked a lot of things at how do we make I think the Big 12 football is one of the best in the country. They get 1 team in this year, but if you look at from top to bottom, there wasn't a week off. There really wasn't. Yet in some other conferences, they do have week offs, and it was just an interesting year, but we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about the settlement, the revenue share, the House settlement case, getting ready to implement that. What are we going to do as a conference? Talked about squad sizes, just a lot of detailed stuff. And then we had some presentations from various groups, but overall it was spirited at times, to be honest with you, with some of the conversations, but always good to get together with our ADs. And then there was other ADs from other conferences that you had a chance to see and visit with. So it's always a good visit out there.
But as you said, no major legislation changes coming out of that.
No, just a lot of good conversation. Now we may have out of this meeting, we'll get some various groups together. Like we'll look at our scheduling model. Do we want to do anything different? We'll look at this, we'll look at that. And then we'll come back for our, we have other meetings, once in March or late February and once in May, and start making some other decisions.
So keep tuned to that. We'll see what Brett Yormark, who again has K-State and the Big 12 positioned in good hands, has for the future. Absolutely. For the Big 12. All right, so you mentioned the revenue share, the House settlement. We had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
We kind of bulked them all into one segment here. We're going to run through them all, and some of them are still not defined.
Right.
But let's start with the beginning of the House settlement. Assuming that it's approved, assuming it all goes through, schools have the option to opt in or opt out. Will K-State opt in, and if so, will it be at the full amount?
Well, we don't have an option to opt in because the settlement is against the Power 4 programs, and so we are part of the settlement. So we have to be a part of it. The other schools that can opt in are the Group of 5 and just the basketball-only conferences out there. So they can't opt in. We don't have that option. So we are definitely part of the settlement. We are part of the $20.5 million revenue share number that's out there. And so we'll absolutely commit to that. We're not there yet. We've got to find ways to get there, just like everybody else in the country. They're all trying to figure out how do you... And basically what's happening is our annual operating budget is about $95 million. It's just gone up $20 million. So we need to basically, as we funded, privately and through donor support and everything else, our own budget for $95 million, we now have to find a way to, find a way to build that budget to almost $20 million budget. So, but yeah, we're not going to opt in. We're going to be part of it. We just have to figure out how quickly we can get to the $20.5 million number.
Still working on that. So if you'd like to contribute to that, ahernfund.com. No,
no, that's very true. That's very true.
Wildcat NIL, of course, is this extra or outside entity that we've partnered with NIL for students. How do they factor in? Do they shutter their doors? Do they come in-house? How does that all play out?
We're still working through that right now with them, as a matter of fact. They're playing a role still because we still have athletes that are part of the Wildcat NIL, so they're handling that side of it through June, basically, once the settlement gets approved, but we still have some commitments. So they're still handling that process. We're talking to them now about what is their next role, because third-party NIL deals, they could still help with that, but it's going to have to be really scrutinized in terms of, is that a real market value? They can help us with that. They can help us with, working with our coaches and looking at, what the numbers are per sport and per athlete. And so we haven't finalized that yet, but I think they're going to still be in existence, but in probably a very different role than they were. They're not going to be out soliciting dollars. They could go out and solicit third-party true market deals, but not like the role that they played in the past.
Well, you mentioned something there about helping the school with the allocation of these funds, so to speak, the revenue share overall. There are some schools that are kind of going with this idea of a GM. Bill Belichick hired in North Carolina mentioned that that's what he's implementing as a pro structure, a GM for football, financial advisors. By the way, that's
an interesting hire.
It is.
Bill Belichick's a really smart football coach, but anyway, we'll see.
They go from the very youthful Mac Brown to Bill Belichick, a one-year age difference. I don't understand it. But a GM position or a financial advisor position that would be at the school to kind of help young men and women with financial literacy, but also a GM that kind of takes that load off of coaches so that they're not having to stress out about who's getting what money. Right,
and we've talked about that. We actually have somebody kind of filling that role for football and basketball right now. They didn't have true GM experience, but they've learned to get it pretty quickly. Because a lot of players have representation, either marketing rep or an agent, and so they're learning to deal with that. There's parents involved, so they are playing that role right now. Whether we actually go out and look for a GM, we have talked about that. We'll kind of see how this first process goes and see. But we are trying to take as much off the plate of the coaches as we can. Now they're certainly going to be involved, but the day-to-day of that is going to be handled by somebody else, one in football, and primarily it's the football and the two basketballs right now. And so we'll see how it goes, and if it's something that we feel like we're still stressing our staff, we may consider that.
One last question on this, and it was one that a fan brought up as well. The payment structure to the actual student athletes, will it be the same across the board for all schools? In that, the question was about incentive-based versus just a flat rate to a specific individual.
Now, what is going to happen at various schools is, of the $20.5 million, they're going to figure out a percentage based on who generates the most revenue. So football is probably going to get a majority of that at schools. Some players are going to do 65, 66%, whatever, up to 80%. Other schools, but most of them are going to be in the 70% range for football. Most schools are going to be in the 20% range for basketball, and then on down the line, women's basketball probably in the 3 to 5, 6, 7%, depending on how they do. And then a lot of other sports will probably, some sports at some schools may not get any. But some sports, our plan is to get every sport some sort of revenue share. And then there's the scholarship proportion of that. We can add more scholarships now. We're no longer limited in scholarships. So we've worked through all that, and we have a plan in place that we're working with our coaches. And then once the coach gets his budget, so to speak, then that coach or that staff or that general manager will decide, okay, who are we paying what and how much of this 70 whatever percent is going to go to each player. Now, obviously, your top 22 players are going to get more. You're going to, it's just going to be like the NFL. Your QBs and your running backs, receivers, corners, probably going to make the most. And then your guys, the number 85 to 105, probably won't make as much. And same in basketball. But once they get their budget, we'll work with them as to figure out how that money is going to be distributed.
It's a lot of stuff to weed through. It's a lot, and it's all coming very quickly.
Yes.
It feels like once
Very
it
quickly.
goes into action and it's officially approved, and all the tumblers begin to turn, and everybody wants answers now. So stay tuned for all of that. I guess out of football, we do have, you hinted at it earlier about the Big 12 meetings. We do have our first question, and it comes from multiple people on X as well. And when is the football schedule for 2025 being released?
We actually talked about that at our meeting. Again, that's always a big conversation, and it's kind of complicated because we kind of know the matrix of who we're playing, and we've said that we're going to probably relook at that because one of the conversations was, do we relook at the metrics? Right now, we play one guaranteed team. For us, it's KU. So do we relook at that? But the matrix, it said, and now we've got to look at the dates, who's playing where, and then the TV will get involved a little bit. They won't have the specific times, but our goal is to get it out. The conference's goal is to get it to us in January. But in the meantime, we're going to meet. I'm on the scheduling committee. We're going to meet before that and just talk through it. But the goal is to get the 2025 schedule ready to go out in January.
Yeah, we do know the first game, and that is, of course, the game in Ireland. We know that game. Ticket package is still available for that. We also know the last game for this year, which is the bowl game, the Rate Bowl, which will be coming up on December 26th in Arizona. Ticket packages, bowl packages available for that. Hope to see everybody there in Arizona for that, and send out this team this year, which has had a good year on a high note down in Arizona.
One of the things that I think Chris made a point of, Coach Kleiman made a point of this, is, yeah, we would love all doing 9, 10 games, 11 games every year. Chris has won at least 8 games, 5 out of the 6 years he's been here. And there are a lot of programs in the country that love to have that kind of winning percentage over a 5 or 6 year period and go to a bowl game. And so as much as, we all want to win more, Chris does, that team does, I think another 8-win season and a chance to win a bowl game is still a special year.
Absolutely. It really is. And try and get to 9 wins as well against a good Rutgers team.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of good teams, this question comes from @GregKSU1027. Will this women's basketball team be the best in school history, and will they bring a national title back home to Manhattan? That gives us a chance here to talk women's hoops here.
Well, they're very good, obviously. And Brian, you probably know the history better than I do. You've been here longer. Obviously, there have been some really good women's basketball teams in the past, won a couple of Big 12 championships over the years. This team's pretty good. And they're very talented. They're very, experienced in terms of all positions. They go deep, right? We're playing 10 kids, 11 kids, and every time somebody comes in, there's really not a drop off, which is good to see. So I think Coach Mitty feels, and the coaching staff and this team feels, they can go a long way. Now, winning national championships is not easy, but if there's a talented team out there, I think this one's pretty talented.
No doubt about it. Your next chance to see them coming up at home anyway will be on Wednesday, December 18th against New Mexico State, and then Big 12 play right after that against Cincinnati before Christmas on the 22nd. The schedule kind of backs up on us a little bit.
Yeah.
From X, purple light on baseball, soccer, foundation buildings look great at night. Any chance adding to the bill, Bramlage or FTF? I think he meant the football training facility, but also the volleyball arena could throw in this as well. This comes from @True2Cats. That purple lighting at night is pretty cool looking. Can we get it added to any other facilities?
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably something I have to talk to Jason Brumman, our facility guy, and there's an expense to that. One of the challenges depends on where you put it, is how accessible it is if those lights go out. Obviously on the bill, it's pretty high up. If you can see right now, one of the things is backlit and one's not. We got the power cat that's not, and the K-State University is. And it's really hard to get up that high. So I think it's just a matter of how much sense does it make, and what the cost would be, and then does it make sense if we have to get to those lights, how difficult it would be to get to them. But yeah, they do look nice, and if we ever can figure it out, maybe we'll do that.
Happy belated birthday, by the way, to Jason Brummett. This is your question. You're welcome for that.
There you go.
From X, our last question is from @JohnGrove02. How do you balance the holiday season with ongoing athletic commitments?
Is that like a personal question?
I think it is.
Okay. I don't really, we're pretty fortunate, obviously. Been doing this a long time, so if you're at a bowl game, for instance, it's just a part of what you do, and you just get used to maybe not being home for Christmas or not, being around your family as much. It's not a lot of fun. We try to include our families, like the bowl game. A lot of coaches will take their families and and that's always a good thing. And it's just a different experience. I love the fact that I've got stuff to do. I've got games to go to. Even when I'm at maybe one game, I'm always watching one of our other games that maybe aren't, that I'm not at home for. To me, it's just, I've been doing it so long, it's just a natural process that we go through. Some folks that maybe aren't used to it, you have to adjust to that, but I love it. I love the fact we're going to go to a bowl game. Yes, it's over Christmas, but we're all going to be together as a group, and then we'll have, it is different, but you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, you do, and people have asked me the same question before as well. Thanksgiving trips are usually when basketball's taking their trips. Yeah. This was the first year we did Thanksgiving at home, I think, in 20 years because the men's team got back earlier and the women were already in Vegas. But you just you can build some camaraderie with the folks you work with.
It's just a different way to spend your holidays, and you kind of get used to it. And you hope that you always have to be an issue, particularly for football season, that you do have a bowl game to work.
That's correct. In the future, we hope that it infects New Year's Eve and beyond into January. That would be a great problem to have. Gene, thanks again for doing this. I know it's a busy time, and also a lot of NIL questions. Thanks for at least navigating some of those.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to it. It's complicated. We'll learn more as we kind of get through it, but we are coming up with a plan, and I think our plan's good, and I think our coaches are ready to implement that plan, and it's not going to be easy. We're going to need a lot of people's help to get to that 20 million, and we've started that process, and so there's a lot of opportunities to help out.
Yes, more information can be found at ahernfund.com through kstatesports.com, and again, we're all in this together as we try and help Kansas State navigate the future of college athletics. Gene, thanks again.
Happy holidays to you and your family and everybody, and we'll see you after the first of the year.
That sounds good. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody watching as well. Keep those questions coming. We'll see you next time on Ask the AD.